So what makes you, you? I mean, really think about it. Is it the DNA you got from your parents, or is it everything you've ever experienced in the world? It's one of the oldest, most fascinating questions in all of science, and we're going to dive right in.
Seriously, just take a second. Your personality, your talents, even your weird little quirks. Where does all that stuff come from? It's a super personal question, but it's also at the very heart of a huge, long-running scientific debate.
And yeah, you've probably heard of it. It's the big one. Nature versus nurture. It's the classic showdown that tries to figure out what's really pulling the strings when it comes to our traits, our behaviors, pretty much everything about us.
So let's just quickly break down the two sides. On one hand, you've got nature. That's your heredity, right? The genetic blueprint you're born with. And on the other hand, you have nurture. And that's basically everything else. Your family, your education, the culture you're swimming in, the whole shebang.
Now, to really dig in, we have to get one key scientific term right. It's heritability. And honestly, this concept gets misunderstood all the time. Heritability does not tell you that, say, 80% of your individual height is from your genes. Nope. What it actually measures is how much the differences in height across a whole population can be chalked up to differences in their genes. It's a small distinction, but it's absolutely critical.
So, to really get a handle on this, we've got to go back in time and see how scientists even started thinking about this question. These ideas didn't just pop up out of nowhere, they have a history.
And a huge figure here, no surprise, is Charles Darwin. His evolutionary perspective really leaned hard into the nature side of things. His work was all about how our inherited biology, our genes, could shape our behavior and our minds, all in the name of survival.
So the core idea is pretty simple. Behaviors that helped our ancestors survive and have kids were more likely to get passed down through their genes. This viewpoint really zooms in on biology, our genetics, our brain chemistry, as being kind of programmed for success.
But here's the thing about powerful ideas. They can be really dangerous. As this quote hints, it didn't take long for these principles of evolution and heredity to be twisted and used in some truly awful ways.
And this misuse led to a dangerous and frankly ugly pseudoscience, eugenics. This part of the story is a massive warning sign about what happens when scientific ideas get corrupted by prejudice.
And this brings us to Sir Francis Galton. He was actually Darwin's cousin, and he took these ideas and created a field he called eugenics. His stated goal? To improve the human race by, essentially, selective breeding.
The whole concept was as simple as it was terrifyingly flawed. Eugenics was all about someone deciding which human traits were desirable and then trying to engineer a society that had more of them by controlling who could and couldn't have children.
Thankfully, eugenics was eventually and completely discredited. So why was it thrown out? Well, for one, it was just plain unscientific. It was also deeply, deeply rooted in racial bias. And most horrifically, it was the very ideology adopted by the Nazis to try and justify their unimaginable crimes against minority groups.
So, after a disaster like that, you might wonder how scientists could ever go near this topic again. But modern science has come up with ethical and really smart ways to untangle all these different influences.
So what's the game plan now? How do scientists today figure out what's coming from our genes and what's coming from our environment in a way that's actually sound and ethical and avoids those horrible mistakes from the past?
Well, the answer is in a few really clever research designs. Modern science mostly relies on three main tools to carefully pick apart the nature-nurture question. First, we have twin studies. These are brilliant. You compare identical twins who share 100% of their genes with fraternal twins who share about 50%, just like any other brother or sister. So if identical twins are way more similar on a certain trait, that's a pretty big clue that genetics are playing a major role.
Next up, family studies. Here, scientists look at how certain traits run in families over generations. If a specific talent or a risk for a disease keeps showing up among people who are closely related, it suggests there might be a genetic link worth looking into.
And the third key method is adoption studies. Now, these are amazing for separating nature from nurture. By looking at adopted children and comparing them to both their biological parents, their genetic source, and their adoptive parents, their environmental source, researchers can get a clear picture of which set of influences is stronger for a given trait. So, what's the final verdict from all this modern research? Well, that old nature versus nurture debate? It's over. It's obsolete. It's not a competition. What science shows us now is that it is always a complex, dynamic interaction between them. A person might have a genetic predisposition for something, but it might only show up if they run into a specific trigger in their environment. The genes and the world work together.
And this all leaves us with one last really fascinating question. If who we are is the result of this constant dance between our genetic blueprint and the world around us, then what does that really mean for our potential, for our ability to change, to grow, and to become the person we want to be?